I'll bring you on, okay?
Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody. This is Leonard Johnson with the third installment of Run the Hammer podcast for this Sunday. Boy, it's been a good time talking to two good young coaches today, and I've learned. I mean, I'm flabbergasted of what I didn't know about building programs and some of the new things that guys are doing to get the kids ready. Today's kids, I would say, get them ready. So you got some good young lines out there. But we are going to bring on not so young a young line, guy who's been around for a while. But before they do that, this podcast is sponsored by my agency, my insurance agency, where we do family expense insurance, we do life insurance, we do retirement programs, and if you need a fine tune on either one of those programs, or you find yourself with not enough coverage or whatever, give me a call. Nobody likes to talk about it, but it's going to happen, so you might as well be prepared for it when it happens. So give me a call, get a free quote, and I bet you I can put you in a better position than you are already. That out of the way, tonight we got the great one. My goodness. I heard about this guy some years ago, and I looked at him on videos and saw him destroying people. And I said, wow. And back in that time, I was running the double wing, and Jeff was running the wing T. But the way he was doing it, and the way he had those kids believing in that system, it's not the play, but it's the system, and they were just beating the crap out of people with that system. So we got the great one, Jeff Calabrese from Hartsville High School. And Jeff, how you doing tonight?
With that intro, I'm doing great, Coach.
Okay.
We lost Friday, so I'm not anybody's favorite tonight. But I appreciate that intro. I'll give you that 20 spot a little bit later.
Okay, man. All right. I'm going to do something here to get you bigger because this is your show. There we go. Let's do this right here. Let's do that right there.
Whew.
There we go.
I might have broke the camera right there, Coach.
No, that didn't. This is your time, Jeff. All right, here we go. All right, guys. This is Jeff Calabrese. Like I said again, a good friend. I mean, we have known each other for a number of years and everything. Had the utmost respect for him, and what he brings to the table as far as South Carolina football. You don't know some of the things that he does beyond the field, and but he is a great ambassador for the game of football in South Carolina. Jeff, for those for that two guy, Joe the Wino and Mary the Wino, who don't know anything about you, would you mind introducing yourself to them?
So my name is Jeff Calabrese, and I've been the head coach at Hartsville High School since 2005. Prior to that, I worked for Lewis Lineberger in 1994 at Hartsville High School for 7 years. I went over to West Florence to be their head coach. I was their head coach from 01 to 04. And, 05 to today, I've been the head coach of the Hartsville Red Foxes. I went to Newberry College, and I say I played. I wasn't very good, but I was there on the team. And just enjoy coaching ball, coaching kids, and being a part, and just really enjoy it.
Who was your coach at Newberry?
Well, I went through a really rough time at Newberry. We went through 3 head coaches and I think 28 assistants. Right now they have great stability in what they're doing, but I was a bit through turmoil. I had Mike Taylor, Gary Smallin, and the first guy, Brad Center, was also there. So I learned a lot what not to do. Obviously, there was also some things that I learned to do, being exposed to so many different people.
Okay. I know Gary, and the other guys I didn't particularly know. And what year did you finish there?
I finished in 93, in December of 93, and then Lewis Lineberger hired me in the spring of 94 and coached their JV for 2 years before he moved me up.
So you didn't start out as this firebrand head coach. You had to go down and learn how to wash uniforms and coach the JV and all that good stuff.
Listen, Coach Lineberger, he had me out raking the field at Kellytown Stadium. It took us 6 hours. And I answered the question. He said, "What are you doing Saturday?" And I said, "Coach, I'm not doing anything." He said, "Well, meet me at the stadium with a rake." Yeah, I've done it all and continue to do it all. I mean, I take out the trash and, no job is too big or too small to do. If it's got to get done, we got to do it. And I learned that trait from Lewis Lineberger. He's one of the hardest working men I've ever been around. And, grateful that he taught me that lesson as a coach. So
it's amazing how that lesson is not being taught more. You get a lot of these young guys who come off a Madden game and, they got 3 plays. They think it's all about the X's and O's, and it's just a whole lot more to this thing, than a play and everything. Now, you talked about your family. I forgot your wife's name. What's her name again?
My wife's name is Jennifer. And then Jennifer. I have, my wife's Jennifer, and we've been married 25 years. She's crazy as crap for still being with me. But she loves ball, and so that's why she sticks around. As long as we win some games. If we start losing, she might swap me out. I don't know.
So she's been with you all those years and everything, all the up and downs and everything. Y'all met in college, or?
We actually met when I was on the job here in '95. And her brother was playing for us actually, and met her after a ball game one time, and been very fortunate to be married to her since '97.
And you got a couple of kids that goes with this?
Yeah, I got a Clemson Tiger. She's a senior. That's Lainey. She's 21 years old. And then my youngest Lily is a senior cheerleader here at Hartsville High School, and get to be on the field with her, and that's a lot of fun as well. Yeah, they're getting older. It certainly happens fast. And in this profession, we spend so much time with everybody else's kids that you got to make sure you find time for your own, because time is short.
How did you survive all that? All those women in your life in the house?
Well, my wife is awesome, and that helps. And, my in-laws are great. Curry and Debbie Dawkins are my wife's parents, and they're extremely supportive. And, so they've allowed me to do my job during the season and been there when I couldn't be. So obviously a lot of support. That's how you get it done. Okay.
You that fan base that you have out there at Hartsville, they're crazy. And they're a little off the chain sometime, aren't they?
Well, I tell you what, we're blessed to have a fan base that loves football. Our fan base loves baseball. I mean, Hartsville's a sports town. Obviously, we played a little bit better at Camden the week before, so maybe I should have did this last week. But, I think the fact that they're passionate, it's where we all want to work. We want to work with somebody in the community that's passionate about what we're doing. And obviously, Hartsville's that kind of place.
You got your administration who's been there. Have they been there as long as you've been there, or do you have new administration as far as in the schools?
Well, I tell you, Charlie Burry hired me in 2005, and he's retired now. But we were able to bring in Corey Lewis as our principal, and Corey was actually on our staff for 6 years as an assistant coach. Also won a state championship as a baseball coach. And then our athletic director, Brad Boob, he was on our staff for 10 years. So I'm very fortunate and blessed right now that the leadership at our school has actually worked with us on staff and has a true understanding of, what we're dealing with and how we run our program. So, pretty fortunate and blessed to be in that situation today.
Your teams have changed over the years from when you got there. How has it changed at your place? I mean, the kids. What's the biggest difference you see between when you got started at Hartsville to now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot. I've been coaching 29 years, and kids haven't changed. Obviously, I think that they're a little bit more image conscious today with social media and likes. I think they're a little bit more fragile from a self assurance. They look for that pat on the back a little bit. But in terms of toughness, in terms of just being good kids, I don't see much difference. I think the biggest problem right now is the family structure. Right now we have so many single parent homes, and if it's single parent homes, sometimes grandma's raising them. So we're not even talking about a parent. And so, it's those values, the things that maybe we took for granted years ago that they already knew. I think you have to continue to work on those small things because the family structure is just so much different. But, we have a great group of kids that work hard, that are respectful. Obviously, we hold them accountable, and I think you have to hold kids accountable, whether that means suspend them on a Friday night because they're not doing the right thing. You have to have rules, and you have to stick by your rules. And I think as long as you do that and the kids understand what's expected, I don't see any big change. Like I said, from an image conscious standpoint, we do see some of that. And I think they are a little bit more self-aware and self-conscious, and you got to try to let that go a little bit. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to put yourself out there. It's okay to show emotions. But other than that, Coach, I think they're all pretty similar.
They know you. You've been around there. You, of course, some of their brothers and sisters. And I guess my question is, how do they come to you wanting to go crazy? If they know what you understand, if they know what you expect and they come to, do they think they're the one that's going to change?
Kids are going to push your buttons. Kids are going to bump up against the rules and see what they can get away with. See if the old guy's, not as mean as he used to be. And, I think as coaches, we all have to make sure that, we get caught up in the X's and O's and watching the film and doing all these things. But if we don't hold our players accountable, if we set rules and we don't enforce them, those things start deteriorating. And when they start deteriorating, you don't like the team that you see. We went through that a couple of years ago and had to get back. I mean, I think, when their families and everybody else, you tend to say, well, I know what he's going through. So, let me be a little kinder in this situation. And what you find out is when you do that, it becomes worse. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, tough love is just as important as regular love. And you got to show those players that, and there's got to be structure in your program. And again, it can't be about what they do on a Friday night. It's got to be what's best for them as a human being and a young man.
Do you see a lot of staff not holding their kids accountable today?
Coach, I don't know that that's for me to answer.
Yeah.
Obviously everybody's going to run their program how they see fit. How we decide to do it in Hartsville may not be how another team does it. I do know that if you don't hold your players accountable, it can get sideways in a hurry. Again, I have enough hard time with my team and focusing on doing those with us. But I do know it's more important than how many rushing yards they can get. I do know it's more important than how many tackles they can get. And I think we can't get sideways. We're in a profession that success or failure on a Friday night determines whether we hold our job and feed our families. But what we can't lose sight of is if our team is not holding themselves accountable and they're not doing things, you're not going to win on Friday night anyway. Mm-hmm. You might win a couple games, but when it comes down to it, if your team has no discipline and your team doesn't do it, you're not going to be successful anyway. So I think we've got to think in terms of what's best for raising young men in your program and what do you want to output? And that's 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. What are you teaching? And obviously we're all not perfect, but I think that's got to be the grounding philosophy of what you're doing when you're dealing with teens and young males and trying to make them men.
That's the perfect answer, Jeff. and you know what makes it so perfect? 29 years. And if younger guys would just learn that one concept that you just pictured right there, they'll be a whole lot better going forward. I find a lot of them afraid to pull that plug. They're afraid, and you got to do it.
Well, you really have to, and I think that you gotta also try to expose your young men even to look at faith and ask questions about faith. Not everybody believes in God, but create conversation, deep conversation about life, about faith and God, and so you got to try to develop the whole man. You don't say, hey, you got to believe this way. You just you expose them to as many different things as humanly possible to allow them to answer the questions in their own lives so that they can become whole men. And I think that we dealt with a death in our program in 2012. A young man by the name of Ronald Rouse died in our program in the middle of the season. And once you've been through that, you understand that if you don't try to expose these young men to everything humanly possible to be better men, we're missing the mark. And it has more to do about building men of character than it does about wins and losses, because at the end of the day, that's what you're working for, is the young man. And you want them to be better for being in your program. They're going to remember relationships and the lessons taught more than they're going to remember their win-loss record. And, I think you have to be grounded enough to see that, understand what your calling is. Yes, you must love football, but your calling is to help men to be young men, or young guys to be young men. And I think we all have to remember that.
You have worked with a lot of people. You mentioned you work with your principal, you work with your athletic director over the years. How is the staff now? I mean, you obviously you can't do this by yourself.
No.
How is your staff today? Let's talk a little bit about your staff.
Listen, we're blessed now. We only have 6 varsity assistants, and that's not a whole lot. But we have on our defensive staff, Carlisle Kuntz has been with us since 2005, and he's been a 39-year vet in the profession. Michael Ross Collins, Jason Earl, and Brian Fuse help them on defense. Help us on defense, do a great job. And then offensively, I have Keith Sanders, who's a 49-year vet who's retired from teaching but continues to work with us. And then we have John Jones. John's been a head coach, been with Reggie Kennedy, a lot of different stops. But the biggest thing with those guys is, again, they love building men first, and they're also great at ball. And, we're very fortunate. And I've always believed, I don't care how many you have on staff, it's the quality. And, we're very blessed to have great quality guys that love it, guys that love kids, and good teachers. And I think that's where it all starts. So, like I said, we don't have as many as some, but what we have is extremely great quality and extremely hardworking. I'm very blessed to have them.
Have those guys been with you for a minute?
So Carlisle Kuntz has been with me since 2005. Keith Sanders has been with us since 2005. We brought Michael Ross. Michael Ross Collins played for me at West Florence. We brought him in, I think it's been 5-6 years ago now. He worked with Brian Fuse. He worked with Jason Earl, and he worked with John Jones. And I also had a relationship with these guys. So when we had opening on our staff, he had worked with these guys before, and they expressed interest. And so really the neat thing is whether they've been with us the whole time or not, we've all kind of known each other. And a lot of us have worked together, and it really just it meshes, it works. And, I think it's a great staff, and looking forward to the future with them.
You said that you've been up at the school since 8 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
What do you possibly do?
Coach, there.
and I seriously asked that question.
Yeah. All right. So Friday night after a ball game, I do the stats, offensive and defensive stats. I usually get to bed about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Saturday I don't work. Just don't do it. Sunday in the morning, I'll start on the eval from Friday night's game. So basically I evaluate every play, offense, defense, special teams. A lot of times we'll watch church at home or try to go in person, but that becomes a little difficult. Then coming to the office, the defensive staff gets here at 8:00, working on the next opponent. Then we'll meet. And then I get into the next opponent. Our players come in on Sunday to watch film. I hold a captain's meeting at 3:30. We do a team meeting at 4. We eval the film from Friday night at 4 to about 5:36, and then back in the office and finishing up the eval of the next opponent. I'm a head coach that's an offensive coordinator, so I have to have enough film watching to be able to help our defensive staff as well as offense. So Sunday's just a lot of film watching, like I said, evaling from Friday night, and then on to the next opponent, watching their offense and defense so I can help with the game plans and give a little feedback.
So you do this, you've been doing this, the same process over all these years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason I asked the question, we were laughing about it early. I just never met on Sundays, and barely. And I joked that we only ran one play, but I had a bunch of young guys, and I said, what, y'all just take the time with mom and dad with your kids and everything. And
Coach, I'm not saying this is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
I think that, my personality is such that I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
And I want to help our defensive staff. I think, when you're a head coach, your responsibility is to the whole team. I could just watch our opponent's defense. I could just do that. I have a special teams coordinator and I have a defense coordinator. But, I think, it's my job to make sure I've evaluated enough so I can help them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it takes a little bit longer. I could probably find someone to do stats Friday night. I could probably find someone to do a lot of this. And, maybe I don't have to eval our game as hard, but I just feel like this is the way I need to do it. And like I said, it takes a lot of time to do it this way. And it's just kind of the way I'm built.
Yeah, I know. That's you.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I was just laughing, I was just laughing.
I know.
I wasn't.
Most people think I'm a little nuts, so I'm okay with that.
No, a lot of guys do the same thing, and I just that's going nowhere right now. I didn't mean for it to go anywhere. It was just a funny thing. You had a tough one the other night, and I was checking the score card and everything. Not necessarily about the game, but after the game and today when you met with your kids, how did your kids feel?
Well, I hope they didn't feel real good about it Friday. I think, the first thing is after the game when we met is I said, look, guys, I said, we love you. That's the first thing. It's not personal. We love you. We're disappointed. We're dejected. But we love you. And, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough from a coaching standpoint. It wasn't good enough from a player standpoint. But we're going to take time to reflect. We're going to be upset the way it happened. The sun's going to come up Saturday. We're going to stay away from each other for 24 hours. We're going to let it breathe, marinate a little bit. And then Sunday's a day of fixing the problems. Sunday's a day of seeing what we could do better as coaches, as players. And it's about becoming better from the process. I mean, listen, when you play great teams, last week we had a great win at Camden and it was amazing. And we learned a lot about our team. And, Friday night we had a big lead and then we lost. And we lost to a great Dillon program. And we learned something. And we had to see it clearly enough to learn something that hopefully makes us better as we prepare for Irmo the next week and then into our conference. So, again, I think it's Friday's raw emotion. Don't say too much. Don't evaluate it because it's never as bad as you think. It's also never as good as you think. So just let it be what it is, and then evaluate it on Sunday and be better for it, and then get ready to go to work on Monday.
When did your kids? You say you met with your captains today, also.
Yeah, we do a captains meeting. It consists of kind of a round table. I've got 3 captains, but I also have 9 other guys that come to the round table discussion.
Mm-hmm. And is that a discussion about football games, or that's discussion about generally what do you talk about?
It's an open forum. Obviously, I'll have some things to bring to them as a group. And then I'll say, okay, y'all start talking. What we tell them is, whatever they want to say in there is open game, free game. They're allowed to be as candid as they would like to be. And it's about expressing concerns or obviously celebrating the positive. It's also about being real, which means I always tell them they can ask me any question they want, and I will give them 100% honest answer. But what happens in that captain's room stays. And what we try to do is set the course for how we're going to go to the team and how, what angle are we going to take? What direction are we going to take? And I've been doing that for some years, and it's been very beneficial. It's a great way for them to feel ownership of what's going on in the direction of the team.
Is over the years? How many years did you do that during your championship runs and everything?
Oh yeah, the size of the group has changed over the years. Some years we've had more, some years less. What we found out is when we do a captain vote, again, every player on our team gets 1 vote for captain, and we come up with 3 captains. But if you were nominated and you accept the nomination to be voted on, you're now in the captain's group. Gotcha. Because that's kind of how the players have spoken, so to speak. So if you've accepted that role, and we found that's been the great one because they care. They've been nominated, they accepted the nomination, but they weren't named captain. But that allows them still feedback. It allows them still leadership position. So we found out to be the best how we need to do it.
Young coach, listen to the dean now, because he's throwing out some nuggets here tonight. That is great, Jeff. And the one thing is, I see it does it. One thing we all talk about, and I used to talk about a lot. Well, you got to have team leadership. All right, coach, what is team leadership? But you're doing it, and that's great, man. I love that idea. Like I said, if I could do this all over again, I'll be 10 times better than what I was.
Well, Coach, I appreciate that, but I tell you, what you're teaching them also is if they're elected captains on your team, there's a good chance that they're going to own their own business. They're going to be a CEO of a company. They're going to run a team of people. And so what you're showing them is, your willingness to take their input. So hopefully when they become that leadership role, they also see how it's structured. So, I think the other side of that is not only for now, but for later, teaching them how to run an organization. And I think that, it's very important to me that hopefully our young men are being great leaders in the future. And it's just kind of another way that I think that they learn that lesson.
Well, kudos to you, man. That is great. A lot of people look at X's and O's and think that's what it is that gets you to be great, but it's those inner things that you do within the team that build those values, that character, and what you're doing with this captain's forum and everything. That is super, man.
I appreciate it, Coach.
Yeah, that is great. Now, kids will do stupid things sometimes. How do you deal with those kids who come off the rail and you like I said, you try to help them. You don't try to chop their head off. You really try to help them. What are some of the things that you do?
Well, I tell you, Tad DeBose is a good dear friend of mine. He's now the head coach at Emerald High School, but he was at Abbeville. And Tad and I became friends when we started playing Abbeville. Now that's not a whole lot of fun playing Abbeville, but and this is only about 4 or 5 years ago. He said, it's a privilege to wear the A at Abbeville, and you have to earn that each week, because we were having a hard time with some disciplinary issues, and he shared that with me, and it changed my whole perspective on discipline. Not saying that I was ever off the rails, but when he explained that to me, it's perfect. So a young man comes in, maybe he didn't act right in class today. He can just say, son, listen, I understand you made a mistake, and obviously you didn't earn the right to wear that red fox this week. We'll have a team meeting on Sunday. You'll be suspended for the week. It could be even if it's just small things, you say, listen, man, that's not free. You're accountable to your attitude. So, or you're late. That's not free. What's the punishment? Well, in our building, if you say any cuss word, it's 5 push-ups, and that's coaches included. Because it's not free. If you wear your hood in the building, it's not free. And so by taking your emotion out of it, you just look at him and say, son, and yeah, coach, I know it's not free. And there's a discipline. So it could be as small as a cuss word. It could be as small as you got your hood on or your AirPods in, or it could be, hey, son, what do you think your punishment needs to be today? We had a young man that was late for the meeting today. I just simply asked him, I said, son, it's not acceptable that you're late. What do you think your punishment needs to be? And he looks at me and he said, well, coach, I probably owe 200 yards of crabbing. And I said, yeah, you probably do. Knock that out. And I think that when you take your emotion out of it, people are going to make mistakes. Whether it was enough to suspend them or 5 push-ups, we can't get mad at it. We're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But I think when you don't make it adversarial, coach versus player, it becomes just a discipline of the action. And that's all you're trying to do is support the young man. But you don't want to make it adversarial. Obviously when it comes to, other things such as drugs, and there's obviously a much bigger punishment, but it still shouldn't be emotional. It shouldn't be, I can't believe, listen, the young man made a mistake. He's lost some privileges. And again, I think you're trying to show care, but you're trying to show discipline. And I think that to me is the most important thing in how we deal with disciplining our players.
When you have to hard discipline a kid, let's say suspend them for some games and everything, do you feel it, or is there anything that I know when I had to just pull the plug on a kid and everything, I felt bad, but it had to be done. Do you get that feeling also? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, the first thing you're going to say is, son, I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell our kids I love them because I do. I spend so much time with them. I spend more time with these players than I do my family. I do love them. And what you do is you say, son, man, I love you. I said, but man, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in your actions. And I said, there's obviously got to be punishment. Yeah, it rips your heart out, coach. When a phone rings or a player does something wrong, it rips your heart out. But if you don't discipline them, you're doing them a disservice. If you don't take away that Friday night game because you got a big-time opponent, but you need to suspend them, it becomes problematic. Now, listen, I'm not saying I've always been perfect. But I think reflection, we ask our players to get better all the time. Us as coaches, we need to become better and constantly looking at better ways to deal with our organization and how we deal with our players. And so obviously over time, I've learned that, again, showing them love, care, but you got to have a hard, fast line. And that line keeps the kids in line. It keeps them saying, hey, I can't go out there and smoke weed because coach, if I get in trouble, coach is going to suspend me or kick me off the team. And I've got to go through counseling and I got to do all this stuff. I want them to say no because they know there's an input. if they're like, oh man, hey, coach is just gonna let me play, so we good because I rushed for 1,500 yards. We're missing the boat. We're serving their talents, not the human being. And so, again, you've got to, in my opinion, you've got to take your own self-worth or out of winning and losing out of it, because then you can't make the clear-headed decision. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes too. I think I just try to continue to learn from them and, do the best by the young men as well as our football program.
Did you ever have to do push-ups?
I did 50. Coach, I had to do.
I threw you for
one. We got beat Friday night, so our backup quarterback, he keeps track of how many I owe. So when I'm done rambling, he'll look at me and give me a number. But yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Hey, it keeps me in shape, Coach.
Okay. Your yeah. When you go, if you ever go back and look at this, you need to look at your face.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You deal with these kids. How's your relationship with mom and daddy?
Well, it's obviously I have some great relationships with some of my parents, and obviously I have some that choose to do it by distance, and not as close as some. Again, just trying to learn the young men and learning their family structure and figuring out who's important in their lives is immensely important. But sometimes those parents or grandparents, don't come up or not around, and so and some of our kids are very private. I mean, I think we find this all out. I think you ask a lot of questions, and kids are going to talk, and kids are going to share what they want to share, and obviously you make phone calls home. I think sometimes we don't make the many phone calls when things are going well as opposed to things are going bad. But I hope that all of our parents feel like my office door is open and my phone is always accessible. I give my number out, and so hopefully they feel that way.
You that's something you work hard at, or the parents work hard with you at, or some of them are just you just don't want to have nothing to do with you or whatever.
Well, Coach, every child is different, and every family structure is different, and some reach out all the time, and you have a great relationship, and it's a true partnership, and others don't. I think obviously sometimes parents are okay with you coaching their kid, and they try to stay out of it. And there's some communication when there needs to be communication. Other parents are here all the time. And I think you just, case by case, try to develop relationships and do the best you can with the exposure and handshaking when you can see them and calling them when you need to call them. Like I said, it's a difficult question because, the family structure is so broken that, sometimes, mom and daddy are not around. And sometimes there's nobody to talk with. So again, I think that's a constant back and forth. It's a constant trying to reach out and get communication when you can. But again, understanding and respecting their privacy when they want that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so difficult dealing with parents today. They're all over the map, and some of them.
We have a parents meeting, Coach, every year, and that's really, you try to get face to face with parents, and to be honest with you, is we probably only have 35% attend. So it's hard, and then you lay out the ground rules and you say, hey, here's my cell number, and if you want to talk about anything other than playing time, come on. And, sometimes, unfortunately, when things are not going the child's way is when you hear from some parents. But, I feel good about our relationships, and I feel like that they all have my number, and hopefully they feel like they can contact me with anything they need. Obviously, we express to them that we're in a partnership with them. But again, if they don't feel like they want to reach out, then you try to respect their wishes. And like I said, it's a tough question to answer, and I don't have the right answer except just be me, be accessible, give them my number, and obviously let them know that they're always welcome to come chat, sit down, and as long as it's not about playing time, I'm not going to have that conversation.
Right.
We'll talk about what they can do to be better. We'll talk about improvement. We'll talk about anything else they want to talk about. But if Johnny's not playing, it's obvious he's not better. So
You got a lot of kids who came through your tenure who are still there and in the city of Hartsville.
yeah, we have a lot of kids still in town. It's I don't know exact percentage, but we have a lot of kids playing right now in college. Then we have some that move away, but Hartsville's a pretty neat town, and in a lot of respects, a lot of these kids come back to our community and live, which is certainly we love to see them and love for them to be around.
Okay. Changing gear from your school to statewide, and I noticed because we were in a couple of meetings before, with the situation. The 6-quarter rule or whatever, where you see that going as far as high school?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. Obviously,
And the only reason I asked that because we were.
yeah, no, I mean it's a great question. I think the biggest thing is the South Carolina High School League is trying to do right by the student athletes as well as the schools, and obviously they're advised by a committee of medical professionals. The roadblocks for playing quarters, multiple quarters in a week, all obviously stems from the threat of concussions and the amount of contacts a young man has. I think that the Football Coaches Association, as well as many football coaches in the state, are trying to express that a JV game is not as long as a varsity game. And by playing 4 quarters on Thursday and opening up the second half of 2 quarters in a varsity game is equal to 1 varsity game of 4-quarter action. That's been, we're obviously tracking that for the number of plays in that game as well as time. We've also discussed shortening our JV games to try to get a 6-quarter rule that would work in that fashion. Again, what we are battling, obviously, is the medical community. Obviously, we want all for safety for the young men. That's obviously paramount for any decision. But I think also having the ability to play 6 quarters is not what we're trying to prove excessive, and have the medical committee agree with us. So again, I think there's been some groundwork. Mark Hodge at Spartanburg High School has done a great job of laying some groundwork and some foundation to look into it. And I think that obviously the powers for the be are open to looking at it. And I think, again, it's not going to be a knee-jerk response. It's not going to be changed today. It's not going to be a magic wand. But as long as we can continue to do research, also prove that concussions are not increasing in nature but decreasing in nature, that it could be a possibility. And I think right now that's what we're shooting for.
I wonder if the classes um, 1A, 2A, and 3A to make it okay for them to do it. But 4A and 5A really, we only have 5 classification, right?
Correct.
4 and 5A don't necessarily need a 6-quarter rule, don't you think?
Well, Coach, I don't agree with that. I think obviously the 1A, 2A, 3A deal with smaller numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some 4A schools not fielding huge teams, or a lot of times it's about getting experience on a Friday night. Let's say you're playing an opponent that maybe is struggling, and you feel like, hey, this could be a good opportunity to get them some Friday night time. Again, we're just trying to get all of our kids experience, get them the experience of being ready for Friday night. So, obviously I can see pluses and minuses. Why the 1A, obviously with way smaller numbers, it could be extremely beneficial. But I think we're also talking about the second half of games. So it's not really fielding a varsity team as much as it is trying to gain valuable experience, and also trying to get some starters out of the game in a situation where the score may be out of hand or separated, and allowing a young man to pop in and gain some experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there states that are doing that successfully?
Well, a lot of states have a lot of different rules. Obviously, some are allowed to play more than others. I think the biggest thing is you have to show the research. You can't get into comparing states because that's really not hard data.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're in a 4-quarter per week rule. In order to open it up to 6, we're going to have to prove that it is safe. And if we can prove that through some studies that we're trying to do now, and hopefully gain traction to potentially get that done. It's a long road ahead. It's not a short road, but it's one that I think has some potential if the data shows that it's possible.
Have they got some preliminary data out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is right now a varsity game is much longer than a JV game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the stats in front of us, but if you played 6 quarters, it's very much equivalent to a 4. I mean, we played, there's 148 plays in our game Friday night. And I think our JV game with Dylan might have been around 90. So you're talking about, 4 quarters on Thursday night is not 4 quarters on Friday. So if 148 plays is the barometer for what 4 quarters is, then I mean, we got to compare apples to apples.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it meant cutting our JV game off by 4 minutes, taking a minute off each quarter, then we get it down to maybe 75, 80 plays. So really, 2 more quarters, you have roughly 80 more plays to go. So, what is 4 quarters? Is it 4 varsity quarters or is it 4 JV quarters? I think from the medical side of it is, one of the questions is if a young man gets dinged, has a headache or something Thursday night in the JV game, if it goes undetected, then they get in the game Friday night. So I think one of the major concerns that I'm hearing is the potential for being injured on a Thursday night and maybe being missed before Friday. So again, trying to figure out, I know Mark Hodge talked about having them have to go through a medical check after a Thursday game to be eligible for a Friday game. That a medical professional, whether it be an athletic trainer or somebody, actually signs off and says, hey, this kid looks great after a Thursday game, and even follow up with him Friday to make sure there's no signs or symptoms, and then be eligible for 2. So like I said, we're doing a lot of research and studying, looking at it for the potential that, we can at least entertain it and have the potential to possibly do it.
Great answers. A lot of people have been asking questions about it. That's why I brought it up to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, man, boy, time has flown. And I need to get you home to Mama or get you back to looking at videos.
She's been texting while we've been on the phone. She didn't know I was on with you today. So she's been texting me, supper's ready. So anytime I'm ready to roll,
Okay, well,
But
let me. Well, I really appreciate you, Jeff, and boy, this has been good, and I can see why you have had and are having the success down in Hartsville. Because I knew you were good down there, but I never knew the inside stuff that you were doing, and that's the most important thing, other than X's and O's, because everybody has their own method of X's and O's.
well, Coach, I really appreciate it. And like I said, I owe you, I think, $20 more for the end on that. But we're all in this profession together, and I think obviously iron sharpens iron, and I think that in the profession, if we just use each other to make this profession better, we're all better off. I mean, obviously on a Friday night, we're all going to compete, but obviously I'm going to be listening to your podcast and steal some nuggets from somebody else, and maybe somebody got a nugget this way. But always appreciate you, Coach, and what you stand for, and what you're doing here.
I appreciate that, man. Well, you go and get that supper ready, and have fun doing it, okay, buddy?
All right, Coach Johnson. Take care, my friend.
And thanks a bunch for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Coach. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, guys. That's a great one. Jeff Calabrese throwing out all these nuggets tonight. And wow. Watch the 6-quarter rule thing, because that's going to decide whether our 1 and 2A schools operate efficiently. And wow. Okay. We done. Oh man, I had a ball. We had 3 great coaches on tonight, and I just like I said, I learn every time that we are on. So don't forget about my agency. If you need help with that, or somebody that need help, give me a call, 843-713-6078, and we can get you hooked up the right way. If you need somebody to look at what you already have to see that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck, hit me up, and we'll see if we can get that done. Until next week, hug somebody and tell them you love them, and y'all have a good night's rest. Good night.